speed is better than accuracy. And people hated that. And I have to, so here, I'm going to qualify this on the FP&A Unboxed show here, is that if you are accurate, accuracy means that there's no room for doubt, like full accuracy, full precision. And that takes time and it takes cost. Both of those are extremely expensive for companies. So what does a small company do? Remember how decisions are made at small companies.
Before we start today's episode, I want to address a common challenge I have observed with FP&A professionals. While Excel skills are abundant, many are not fully tapping into Power BI's capabilities to enhance their financial analysis skills. With over a decade of experience in FP&A consulting and countless training sessions conducted, my most loved training by FP&A professionals, hands down, has been my Introduction to Power BI for Financial Analysts. So, for my loyal podcast listeners, I am giving you free access to it today. Check out the link in the description below to upgrade your FP&A skills today. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome Duke Heninger on our podcast today of FP&A Unboxed. Duke is a partner at Amplēo and is the creator of CFO systems, where he helps mentor basically CFOs. So welcome, Duke, and many thanks for making the time.
Tejas, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, it's a real pleasure. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. In the prep call that we had, I think we had some really interesting discussions. So I think this is going to be a fun activity for sure.
For sure. We had a good time.
So from ground up, if we start from the start, right? So how did you get into finance and what pulled you towards FP&A? What are your thoughts around FP&A essentially and finance and what got you to finance as a career choice?
Well, I came from the accounting background. I went through the normal, what I would say, I guess the traditional, CFO. You look at the CFO 30 years ago and it's very different than the CFO today, right? And it seemed like everybody came through the accounting background. You become a CPA, you're a good boy or girl and you follow all the rules and then you become a controller. And then at some point, everything falls apart, right? Because accounting doesn't really teach FP&A.
Nope.
And
everything falls apart when you go into FP&A.
That was the fun part, right? As soon as you break through, that's when I became a controller at a very fast growing, $20 million company when I stepped into it, and it doubled year over year for a couple of years. It forced me to learn the things that I didn't yet know, and that was a lot of FP&A. And so that's how I got into it. And then I've been practicing that ever since. It's been about a decade now, and I'm still practicing.
Yeah, but so what got you really interested into FP&A, right? So what really attracts you for FP&A? Was there a trigger moment in your journey as a controller where you were like, you know what, let me explore this more, let me analyze this more, and that made you transition into FP&A?
Well, I got in, and you get all these questions, right? You get questions that you have no idea the answer to. I was very used to, I came after, 2 months of being a controller, and I was happy to report that I built the depreciation schedules and equity was rolling and, all the GL balances were ticked and tied. And you know what? Nobody cared. What they did care about, though, was why were margins changing? What's our run rate right now? When can we go buy, pick your CapEx? When can we, when are we going to get ourselves in a safe spot? And I didn't know the answers to these. And so I did what I think most people do when they have no idea what they're doing. And I just worked more. And I overworked. And in that overwork, I was able to, it wasn't fun, but I started to learn some things. Now, I had nobody around. This was a decade ago, and it's amazing what even Google has become a decade ago. There was no ChatGPT, and you're just kind of asking around. And Google produces some answers of a few things, but it wasn't everything. And the biggest breakthrough was forecasting. It was building a 3-statement model. And the second biggest breakthrough was cash forecasting. I had no idea. Like, I think accountants generally like to say no to things until we absolutely know what's good. And so, here's how accountants see things. Okay. I'm facing backwards right now. And in that facing backwards, you want to see a big, beautiful picture backwards before we can start moving forward. Okay, now that we have a lot of money in the bank, now we can start buying things. Well, that's just not how business works, right? And so, you become this party pooper pretty fast. And that's what I became because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And nobody did. So did people listen to me? No. Founders, the executive team, they're just moving right ahead. And in fact, it kind of made me look dumb. And because they're like, look, we can't listen to what he has to say. So I had to change gears, and it was that forecasting, that future look, that was probably the biggest change for me.
Yeah. See, again, this is it, right? So lots of people, this is a lesson to learn for a lot of people. A lot of people sit and complain that nobody listens to us in the business of finance is becoming a back office. Yeah, but nobody's listening to you because you're being a party pooper. You're not forward looking. So then nobody wants to listen to you, right? I mean, it is pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Right. Yep.
Perfect. So from a CFO perspective, obviously you've done a CFO role for a while. So from a CFO perspective, when you build your own FP&A teams, now you're not doing the FP&A, you're building a team around you who does the FP&A for you. So what does a good FP&A from a CFO chair look like? What do you want from your FP&A? What the structure should be? What would make you feel that, yeah, this is the FP&A team I have and they are really strong in what they do?
Okay, well, I have to qualify this because I worked mostly with companies under $100 million in sales. And as part of my firm, I have about 120, 130 consultants that are spread all throughout accountant to CFO, FP&A, controller. And, you have to pick the right person for the right job. And in the smaller space, which is what I know very well, sometimes the CFO is even posting a few journal entries here and there. So, the lines are kind of blurred in the smaller space. But I've noticed that as I've been going throughout this transformation, and it's a years-long transformation, to become a CFO is not something that you do overnight. And it takes practice, it takes understanding. Like, it took a while for me to break through from the controller mindset into more of an FP&A and forward-looking mindset. Then it took time to break through into the financing and how to manage it, how to negotiate it. And then it took time to break through from the financing to the more strategic outlook in really understanding what are we doing and why, and what are we really trying to achieve. And then it was only through the practice of all those things that really help you to open up your eyes and see that these are all very connected. And so I, as the CFO, I can design what I kind of want out of the entire system. So in the smaller space, it's not just that an FP&A individual can just do FP&A. You kind of need to be more of a generalist. Probably now I'm focused primarily on, the more valuable aspects of it. I try not to do any type of accounting or, I'll do a journal entry here and there, but I try to even avoid that. But rather, I want to build the people around me or the systems around me, the processes, so that I can elevate myself. Because it's very easy to get sucked back into those things that just take time. And in the smaller space, sometimes you just don't have great data, and you still need to know how to do stuff with the best information that you have. So when I'm building the people around me, it's important for me to be able to focus on those things of higher value, because if not, then I'm just overbilling. Or I might be doing something very valuable in a controllership seat, but no one sees what I'm doing. So therefore, it doesn't have a perceived value. So you've got to be really careful, right? And so when I'm building these teams out, it's important for me to make sure, number one, you have the right people in the right seat. Any component, there's three main components of any system. It's person, process, platform. And what I love, though, is that with the technologies that we've seen advancing over the past 2 decades, really, it's been taking the mundane out of work. And it's been taking those repetitive tasks that nobody really enjoys doing. They're soul-sucking. And so we've been moving from throwing a person at it to just, maybe we just need to fix the process first. Then sometimes you elevate the people, and then they can start focusing on the things of higher value, and when you elevate a person, you elevate yourself. You can take yourself out of that. And some people are really threatened by that, right? Because, let's take somebody in a controller. Now people throw around the word CFO like it means something. And we all know that people are using that incorrectly.
Yes.
And so there is this, we're seeing bookkeepers and controllers that are calling themselves CFOs. And, maybe they can perform CFO type services for companies in the smaller space. But there's usually some things that they're not considering. And it just takes experience and time in doing more strategic things to really understand the big picture. So going back to the systems, we want the people doing the right thing. And we want the processes that are working very well and being streamlined, and you have the technologies that are built in. Now, that's part of the platform, right? The platforms are any of the tech stack. Now, a platform, it's the tools. It can be a spreadsheet. It can be something very simple, or it can be, a
EPM, ERP, whatever, CRM.
Yeah, it can be any of these things. It can be a BI tool. It can be, the software that runs, whatever it is. It could be a billing thing. It could be accounting systems. It could be finance system. It doesn't really matter necessarily. And so, it's just the combination of those three things. So when I'm looking for people, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's the only thing. I'm looking for a people, process, and a platform that's all cohesive, that works very well. And then it works. And then I can really start focusing on the things that I need. Otherwise, all that stuff below is going to be a big vacuum, and I'm going to get sucked back into it.
Yeah, but so you are suggesting the right people with processes which are basically optimized, and what you are calling basically programs, or what technology stack essentially, which supports the two. But what in terms of deliverables do you think, if your FP&A team is around it or on top of it, as a CFO, you'd feel, what, thank God they are taking care of this, means I don't have to.
Right. I'm looking for, there's a few things that I'm looking for. Remember, I'm coming it through the smaller space. So, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. And the kind of deliverables that I'm looking for is, do we know where we're going from a short-term view and a long-term view? So I want somebody maintaining the rolling forecast, the financial forecast, the 3-statement financial forecast, to help build out that longer view. Okay, from the shorter view, the 13-week cash forecast. Then combined with that, I want I want to make sure that we have the systems connected in such a way that we can go and query the data as we need to go understand what are the actuals and historicals and what's really driving all of this. Because if we can't have good reporting, well, we can't predict very well, what's going to be happening other than just guessing. But we don't really know what's driving it at all, right? And so, but it's kind of a graduation of just, let's set up like the support systems first. That's like the accounting. Let's get the accounting right. Let's maybe align the chart of accounts. Let's make sure we are able to query data. And sometimes you just don't have anything. It's very common for these small companies to not be tracking anything. You have ins and outs, and that's it. You have no idea what it's for or what it's really going to, and you kind of have to go and build. That's where, as a CFO, I still have to go, okay, I have to put on my controller hat, and I have to see, how can we start gathering this data in a way that won't tank this company? Because like FP&A people, we love data. in this firm that I have, sometimes most of the time, we're bringing on people who have been doing this for years and years and years. And they've been doing it at large companies, mid-sized companies, mostly companies that have these great platforms. And then they come, and it's difficult for them in that first year of doing fractional work to take their mind out of big company thinking. And they think, oh my gosh, it's almost like they're being a little bit, derogatory towards some of these clients. Oh, you guys don't have this system in place. Like, why aren't you guys keeping track of any of this stuff? And it's like they look down upon it. But in reality, that's what most of these smaller companies are doing. So this is why FP&A in the smaller space has become so valuable, because it's now giving something that these businesses usually don't have until they are getting up into like the 100 million plus size. And then they're able to start hiring on some top talent to be able to manage this data. Until then, they're just flying by the seat of their pants, and they're stressed out all the time, and people are very reactionary. So, and I don't think there's any, it seems like as soon as you get to like $5 or $10 million, man, you've got sufficient data to need FP&A to some degree.
I'd like to get your thoughts actually first before I tell you what I think. How does AI play into this, right, for you? Because AI should be playing into this, and as you said, right, if the programs are set up correctly, then they should be able to do a whole lot of the manual mechanical stuff on their own. So do you think AI would help in that?
Man, Tejas, I'm so excited for what AI will one day do. But right now, it's garbage in, garbage out. And so it doesn't really matter, for these smaller companies, people are asking, hey, what can I do with AI? And I go, okay, well, let's talk about that in 6 to 12 months. But, there are some things that we can do now. And the way that I use AI is to augment my analyses, my thoughts, even my formulas. Hey, what's a way that I can think about this one thing? And, it gives me some ideas. And that's great. So it helps me. And then it seems like right now, AI is really the first area where it's really becoming very valuable is as it's incorporated into other softwares or other platforms. Because it kind of needs a structure to be put in place to be able to glean data and insights from it. And so it kind of needs to go on this platform and do things. But I'm still seeing that it struggles or it's wrong. And outside of using AI to perform some, Python to really, dive deep into data and to sift through data faster, which by the way requires that data to still be good. It's still in this phase of advancing. And now, it's been doing this for longer than I've even realized. And it's to a point now where everybody knows what it is. And so it's going to go really fast in its applications. But it's still, in these smaller companies, still something that we need to prepare for and build the data infrastructure so that we can start to utilize AI and leverage it.
Cool. I think that is still interesting. Well, in my mind, where I was thinking is you mentioned in your earlier part, right, where that in a smaller business, you need to be the controller as well as the FP&A because you just can't have 20 people in finance, right? Physically just not financially possible. So if AI can start helping the controller do a bit more analysis, for example, and things like that, it just helps, right? Get better utilization from that skill set.
Anything that's going to take time away from all of that. And I think that's where it's those repetitive tasks that is really helping out now. So like AI is helping, OCR, remember when OCR came out and it was like, oh, well, it does okay job, but it still kicks a lot out that, people need to go and sift through and really understand. Well, now AI is making that OCR a lot better, and that again, it's on a software. So, it's an expense management software. That's like some of the lowest hanging fruit for these smaller companies. Let's get you installed. Let's get you Bill or Ramp or Brex or one of these kind of solutions. And, and integrated within these is AI to some degree. And that's fantastic. And what's even better is that it's going to continue getting better. And that's
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to take these repetitive, low-value tasks away, and now it's going to elevate the people. And this is great because we know we're all going to become. We have to elevate ourselves, otherwise we're going to become irrelevant. I don't think AI is out to take our jobs. It's out to change our jobs for the better. But if we're not willing to change, then yeah,
You have a
it'll take your
problem.
job.
Yeah, because I've seen some great AI bots where they are basically using OCR technology combined with AI to do the optical reading better, more accurately, and more so interpret. So if your invoice number in AP especially, right, when your invoice numbers move from top left hand side to bottom right hand side or whatever else, OCR is not always very good with it, but because now OCR is just telling you all the alphabets and the AI is then translating it into English and understanding that, okay, this is what has happened, it starts to make a lot more sense. I think there is a lot of opportunity from that perspective.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Even in small, medium-sized organizations to, leverage technology to improve productivity of people. So the way I always pitch AI is there to improve productivity from people. You're not going to fire your team. You're going to keep them, but they will need to do something more valuable than your
Yes.
basic tick box exercises, essentially.
Oh, yeah. And think about the other application of AI that I've been enjoying. Remember when bots started to become a thing? And that was revolutionary when it started happening. But there was a huge problem, is that if you changed a process just barely outside of this bot, well, then it all fell apart. And it was only really helpful on this one server or this one computer. And if something changed out of all these things, then it was a problem. And it still needed a human to make sure that any of the tables that it was referencing, to be able to look up, to make sure that yes, this customer or this vendor is that, has that result or whatever it is, it would all just fall apart. And then you have this expensive implementation that is now garbage. And again, for small businesses under $100 million,
Can't afford it.
I have yet to find that business that isn't changing like every week. The processes are always changing. It's necessary to change. So you have to have something flexible and nimble. And what I've appreciated is that as long as you have the right overall infrastructure and the right people, process, platform, all of that, then AI can really augment that and can improve upon those bots. Now some bots are using AI, or some platforms are essentially replacing the bots, and giving you something that's better. But it's all a work in progress.
Yeah, no, but see, to be very, very honest, you keep qualifying what you're saying that this is all for small businesses. Let me tell you categorically, all my career, I have worked with 100 million plus businesses most of the time, 90% of the time, but they have the same problems. Okay. Things change. Cost center hierarchy structure changes 5 times a year. Okay, this department was reporting into this hierarchy. Now they're reporting into that hierarchy. Policy has changed. Contracts have, they're more messy. In fact, with a smaller organization, very respectfully, you've got, say, I don't know, 200 customers in a B2B environment, and you're working with those 200 customers. Only difference in a bigger organization is they now have 20,000 customers, but they still have the same mess. So the only thing that
Okay,
happens.
so it's only getting worse. Hey, Tejas, I remember I've only ever worked in smaller companies below 100 million. So I always assumed that above that, everybody's perfect.
No, God,
It's
no,
just me
but
who doesn't know what I'm doing.
no, boss. I can tell you uncategorically that is the reason why I have a business, is because the bigger organizations just have the same problems in a bigger volume.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yep.
It's nothing different than that, which is fun, right? Which is fun to work with, to be honest. Makes it really exciting, though.
It does. I enjoy it a lot. And it's fun to have some big breakthroughs and to be valuable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when you see the eyes of your client light up, you're like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do that, and you're like, yes, that's
Yes.
it, right? That's
Yep.
what
And they
you.
never considered that before. They just didn't think it was possible because, hey, it hasn't been done so far.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, so how do you build trust and speed in decision-making process as a FP&A leader, according to you?
Oh, man. Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about this. And I remember I shared this on LinkedIn once upon a time and I got grilled for it. I said, here's some things I've learned. And the number one thing I put in there is that speed is better than accuracy. And people hated that. And I have to, so here, I'm going to qualify this on the FP&A Unboxed show here, is that if you are accurate, accuracy means that there's no, room for doubt, like full accuracy, full precision. And that takes time and it takes cost. Both of those are extremely expensive for companies. So what does a small company do? Remember how decisions are made at small companies. You have a founder that goes and meets at, a Quiznos with another founder or a soon-to-be founder, and they pull out a napkin and they start making stuff up, and they're writing on the table, or they're using their finger in the air to represent their big plan. And there's decisions that are made based off of the air, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they don't need data to support this. And now they hope that they have sufficient data. But when we come in, especially from those from an accounting background, are taught that, it has to be right. Otherwise it's wrong. It's very black and white. The gray, there's not a lot of gray, but in finance, there is a lot of gray. And you also have to know when you can be a little bit gray or when you do need to be black and white, and so it's difficult for some people to break through this, but I believe that it's still better to be fast and accurate. You just hope that the information is good enough. So it needs to be accurate enough, right? So, you look at if you look at it on like a curve, you have these two lines, and one is the cost, on one side of this matrix, you have cost, and the other one is you have, perceived value. And as sometimes as that, or accuracy, there we go, accuracy / speed and the cost of that thing. Well, the further you get more accurate and more speedy, that cost, it's an exponential line, right?
It's really 100%.
But then you have this other line that's kind of like a perceived value, or it's like, here's the incremental amount of value getting from this. Well, as in the very beginning, with those few little changes, and that line starts to go up, it doesn't skyrocket to be super expensive. It's going to, you're going to, that other line of value is growing faster than the actual cost of it. So, you can make a few things better, get a ton of value out of it, and be seen as very valuable. But it is important for all of us to know, okay, there's certain situations where we need to make sure that we're going to be more right. So, when I'm bringing on a new client, I say, okay, well, tell me your exit. I like to start from the end and kind of back in there. What's your plans for an exit? And some people, it's years out. And for other people, it's very soon. In fact, the reason I'm hiring you is because I'm considering buying a company, selling my company. Hey, PE is knocking on the door and they're asking questions. I just want to know what's going on. These are very common conversations I have. I go, okay, well, look, if any of these things are going to happen and you're going to need to get some kind of outside capital in any way, okay, we're going to have to speed up the accuracy. And I'll tell you what, it's going to cost a lot more, but at least they can see where it's going and they can see why. And so that benefit or that value line still is above the cost, right? Because they see, hey, if we can do all of this and it's going to be very expensive for a few months, we can get everything right and supportable so that as we go through this due diligence, then it's going to be known. But most of the time, Tejas, when I'm jumping into a company, that's in the future. In fact, that's years away. And all they're really trying to do right now is to make decisions, napkin decisions. And I know that if I'm too slow, they're going to make those napkin decisions without me. And then I'm going to be less valuable.
Yeah, and they will make those decisions on a napkin without you. So it is better you get them to make it on an Excel book with you rather than a napkin without you, essentially. But again, what you say, if I may put it in a slightly different way. Essentially, what you're talking about is law of diminishing returns in what we learn in economics, that the more accurate you try to get, the more it's going to cost you, and the value of that accuracy, the cost of accuracy is just going to keep going up because you are trying to be 100% accurate. And some of it, respectfully, you don't need to be accurate. You actually just need to directionally be good enough to know that where it is headed and have some milestones along the way to check post that, okay, am I headed in the right direction? Otherwise, you don't need it to be. It's not something which is auditable, right? I mean, this is not
Yep. Yeah.
compliance work. And that's the difference between a accountant and a FP&A. We don't do compliance work, which is
Bingo. Oh, we hope we don't anymore. But for those of us that come from accounting into FP&A, it's easy to get stuck in making things too accurate.
Yep, I completely agree. So from reports to conversations, right? So how can FP&A shift from data delivery to basically having strategic finance conversations and exactly strategic conversations like the one we were just referring to, right? Get into that napkin conversation rather than be a guy who sends out a Power BI or a PowerPoint report every month and goes home, and that's the only thing that he does.
Let me know if you have any questions, as you know, in the email.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, this is what I love telling people is get your butt out of your seat. Go talk to people. Go walk the floor. Go see what's happening. Okay? You know, I come from a manufacturing background. It's a night and day difference if you actually know the process that's happening. And so as I started leaving my full-time job and I started going into, doing work fractionally, I would speak with these controllers and I would ask them questions that I just assumed, well, of course you know that this process, right? And most of them would not. And all they have to do is go and see and go and talk. And early on, I think there's a lot of people that feel a little bit unsure about that because sometimes you're talking with people who are actually above you, or at least it's perceived to be above you, and so people are a little bit afraid to step on someone's toes or offend or something. But it's very, like, the first part of business partnering is just becoming a partner. Let's break this down. This isn't rocket science. You have to understand business and you have to be a partner. So
and you work in the finance function.
Help.
So that is your finance business partner.
This is not rocket science, but people need to go out and understand, right? Look, I remember when I was making the transition, I was very uncomfortable to go talk to somebody before I knew the answer already. It's like I wanted to dive into the data. I wanted to create my hypothesis. I wanted to then corroborate that against their story and then poke holes in it. It's like I had my auditor brain on still, right? And, that's such a big turnoff to people because you're trying to look like you're more smart than them or anything. And most of the time you're wrong. You're creating some assumptions and you're just not there. You're missing some part of it. And it's very simple to go and just talk to people and say, hi, what do you do? How do you do it? What does winning look like? What's working? What's not working? What would you like to improve? What would you like me to provide to you from a data perspective that could help? Now, they'll say information, or some people won't. But at least, you can have keeping those kind of conversations consistent. Isn't like what? I have those conversations once a month, mostly, with the different department heads. And for the first 3 months, this is the first time they've had these kind of conversations before, and it's kind of strange for them. We look through some of their expenses, and first part is just making it visible for people. And then after a while, you start realizing things, and you're simply just making it visible. And they start asking you questions, and then you start understanding what's important for them. And if done right, a few months down the road, now you are providing information the way that they need to see it to really support their decisions you understand why they're making those decisions and how it ties in the overall like strategy of the whole organization, or how it doesn't, which is also very insightful.
Absolutely. Exactly. And if somebody's trying to play their own ego, you can figure that out pretty quickly as well if you just go out and talk to people.
It's so simple.
I completely agree. I've had those instances as well where even to clean out your balance sheet and my balance sheet stock valuation, my CFO was like, go and figure out the stock valuation. And I'm like, why should I? I don't even know anything about this stock, man. I mean, you're talking about parts and materials. I mean, I know what they look like on a balance sheet, but like in real life, what's the real life value of it? I have no bloody idea, man. How the hell would I know? I just go to the warehouse manager, and you talk to him. He will tell you what is rubbish in that stock.
Oh man, it's the front lines. The front lines know the BS. Sometimes the department heads, right, they're spinning the story in what they hope it to be. And you go to the front lines and they'll just tell you what it really is. Hey, have you guys been selling any of these? Have you been assembling? Oh man, that stuff's garbage. Nobody even likes that. People are returning it, and they see that.
Yeah, he told me on my face, he's like, all of this stuff is been in this warehouse for last 7 years. It is so difficult for me to keep moving it back and keep managing it. In fact, if we put it on eBay, we'll get like whatever 5,000 pounds for it. Let's just get on with this kind of conversation.
Yes, I would love to have, I'm an inventory guy. So I love having the warehouse be the ones to determine the inventory reserve, They'll tell me exactly what it is. Now, I can go and show the data to support that, but there's boxes with dust on them. This is simple, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that is it. I think that to me was finance business partnering, standing with that warehouse manager and having a coffee or tea with him outside in the open while he smokes a cigarette. And you're getting actually business insights, which you will get more business insights than you'll get in a boardroom. Because in boardroom, everybody's trying to spin their plates and make sure their job is secure, their department is secure, things like that. Whereas that warehouse manager is like, I don't care. This is my job. I'll tell you what it is. It's fantastic, man. You get better insights there.
Absolutely. Yep. It guides your analysis. Then you're not spending all day sifting through all of the data to find something of value. They'll tell you where you need to look, and it speeds it up.
Yeah, and I like your earlier story as well, of you used to first do all the data analysis and things like that. I also learned later in my life as I went along, right, that it is better to go and ask open-ended questions than to try and provide, oh, this is what I think and this is how it should be. And that doesn't get you through doors. You go and act dumb. I've made more friends acting dumb than to act intelligent.
Telling people what you know about them is a great way to turn them off and to just completely remove any power politically that you have within an organization. So just be chill, be nice, be easy to talk to, be a friend. That's the partner. And, going out to lunches with people and hanging out with them can produce a lot more value than diving in straight into the data.
I completely agree. Okay, so big lessons. What is a failure or learning moment that shaped how you lead today? One incident.
The first one that came to my mind. Okay, there's actually been a lot. I think I've learned more from my mistakes than my successes. And because mistakes can change a lot faster how you do something, right? And I have made giant accounting mistakes. I have made mistakes that I've said things while inadvertently knowing that I was negotiating a debt deal and I didn't know it. I was just brought in to kind of talk about it. And I said things too much. And I've learned that there is power in communication. But I've learned that through my successes and my failures. I had an instance where, $50 million company that has, maybe 10 to 15% EBITDA. And you find a $1 million accrual that is completely missing because of a calculation that was just wrong. I think we can all tell stories about this. And you go, oh no, what do I do? okay, let's talk about the good and the bad. The good times were always the ones where I told the truth early and fast to everybody involved, even the banker. Hey guys, we found an error. I'm sorry. This is how it's not happening anymore, but here's how we're going to fix this. But they have to know. Okay. Could trip some covenants. Now, there was also a time where I tried hiding something from the banker, and that completely blew up in my face. And so I learned never to hide things from the bankers. As soon as they see that you're not submitting the reports correctly, or that there's some weird accounting thing they're going to ask questions. And if you don't tell them, then they're not going to trust you. And that will prevent the solution. They want what's best for us because it's best for them too, right? So people are willing to work with you if you are honest. And I have made a couple of mistakes where out of fear, I withheld truth. Okay. And I justified this. Oh, I'm not lying. I'm just not telling everything, or I'm going to let them figure it out. That always hurts me. Those have probably been my biggest mistakes. And I've learned from that. And I'm grateful for those times. And I still make mistakes. Just last year, I made another $1 million mistake. I addressed it very truthfully. It was embarrassing. It was painful for me. But because of that, everybody said, oh, hey, thanks for letting me know. Ooh, that's too bad, but okay. Okay, well, here's the plan, And I was able to create that and I tell them what the plan is. And I had to do a lot of extra work to figure this all out, right? But it gave me the opportunity and it made it better.
Yeah, no, we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But yeah, that I guess is a big learning opportunity, right? It's not a mistake. It's a learning opportunity to take it forward, is what I'd say.
We all hope that there's going to be some improvement along the way. Yeah, we all get better. Don't make the same mistake twice, though.
No, see, this is the fun, right? So every time, like when we are doing stuff with our client as well, this is a conversation the client always has. And these are clients I love. They're like, okay, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? And how can we prevent it never happens again? As long as you answer these 3 questions correctly with confidence and you evidence what you are saying, I think it's good enough.
Yeah.
That's about it, right? What else can you do? Anyway, so if you had to write one liner for a playbook, giving FP&A leaders advice, what would that one liner be for FP&A leaders?
Start simple, add complexity as necessary.
I completely resonate with that one.
I think that goes back to the first discussion. In order to do a lot with a little bit of time, you have to make the most important things simple. You have to make everything simpler to be able to fit in extra time to do the things of greater value. So you have to start simple.
I've always found it more difficult to keep things simple. To make it complex is easier. To make it...
We know what good looks like. And it hurts us to not just jump straight to that. But, this is from my perspective, I did this for myself for a lot. And then I became a partner of this larger firm. And we bring in lots of consultants. And these are people who have been doing it for a long time. They're very experienced. And it's common in that first year. This is when most of the mistakes are made. And the number one mistake is, well, there's a few mistakes. One is you're selling yourself too short. You're not billing enough. And this is what I see with a lot of fractionals. But that people are focusing on everything rather than the core. And we know, look, if we can just go to the core, those of us who have been doing this for a while, we know that there's some things that are more valuable than others. And it's not always the same exact path. There's kind of an iterative approach where you have to figure out what's important first. And then you have to start building the system to support that thing, right? And then you can kind of expand from there. But you have to make it simple first because you don't know what's going on yet. And sometimes they don't even know either. They've never seen this stuff before. So let's start with what we know. Let's learn together. Let's use some simple tools to do that. And you know what? This will get better over time. Yes, we'll add in more drivers. We're going to add in the visibility. At some point, we'll probably layer on BI tools when it makes sense. And then we can really start, gathering the data. But right now, there is no data. So let's just start with financial analysis, and go from there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, finding your strategic pillars, and then building around them, and then making it complex if you need along the way is fine. But finding the strategic pillars of what are you trying to drive and why are critical for for your success to begin with. Anyway, I'm going to now go through my 3 standard questions, because I'm asking them from everybody. So, hey, where do you think future of FP&A is in next 3 to 5 years? Preferably don't say just AI, right? I mean, just AI is not a valid answer. So what do you think is the future of FP&A in next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's going to be that we're going to become data architects. I know we already are, and I'm trying not to say AI at all, but we know that that's a huge driver of all of this. But it's also that there is just so much, their eyes are being opened earlier on than they were before. So another thing is that we are, FP&A, it's not something that's just reserved for large companies. It's something that is very valuable from a very early stage. As long as you have some kind of data or some kind of forecasting need, FP&A is going to be valuable. And so far, I haven't really found a business that doesn't need that. Okay. And it can be very simple in some cases, or the need is very complex. But we are going to need to understand what is it we're really trying to do, what's important, and then building this FP&A system around that thing, no matter the size of the business. So we need to be flexible in order to do that. And I think that over the next 3 to 5 years, I've seen just over the past 5 years, the fractional space has blown up. And this is where I believe that FP&A has grown significantly over the past 5, and it's still growing a lot. So that's going to be a thing. And it's going to be, I think that we're going to see accounting programs hopefully change to become almost like a accounting / finance / FP&A program, to prepare the next generation of professionals to think a little higher and to be a little bit more diverse in how they can manage, the finances within an organization, not just make them accurate.
So what is the one thing that most FP&A functions need help with today so that they can become a better strategic finance business partner?
I would say the one thing that could make the FP&A better is communication. I think there should be more communication among, between from the analysts all the way up to, the CFOs, is breaking through and making sure and like, hey, I know the buck stops with you from this really narrow perspective. Widen it all, become part of your organization. And the people who can do this successfully, even at an earlier stage, those are the ones that get promoted the fastest because they are more valuable to more people. And so that communication is a way to open up those doors. It's one of the main pillars of business partnering.
So for someone who is looking to get into FP&A or has just started in FP&A, what is the one skill or certification or both that they need to become a good FP&A professional?
You need to have a certain technical background. You need to understand Excel and how to work within it to produce the data, or some companies have already adopted different platforms to be able to utilize those kind of things. You need to understand technical data from both, the ability to process and understand data, as well as you need to understand, hey, when this thing changes, how does that affect all those other accounts? Okay, so that's the technical understanding. But at some point, there's those diminishing returns. Getting more technical isn't necessarily going to help you. So, the natural progression is, well, then you also need to understand how business works. And the best way I know we're swimming in the language of business and we're seeing the result of things, but sometimes we don't really know how that happened or what came of it. So that goes into that second part. The part that I just talked about is communication. So after a certain level of technical understanding, you've got to be able to communicate well and be helpful to other people. And in that communication, you are going to learn the business. You're going to understand what you need to do.
So any closing thoughts for the future leaders of FP&A or current leaders of FP&A that you'd like to pass on as a part of this podcast?
It's improve, elevate, or stop. This is a really cool time. I don't think there's been any period of time where we've seen such massive adoption of improvements of processes, of technology replacing old manual processes. And I think for the people who are going to do well, we need to be able to look down from the data and up to what's really important. What are we trying to do? Where are we going? And then we can be able to lead these organizations. So we're going to use all of this stuff, and I love it because I see myself as a person who's able to look up and see how and why we're using all of that. So if you can do that as well, you're going to be that much more valuable.
Thank you so much, Dan, Duke. That is much, much, much appreciated. That was a fantastic session. I think people will pick up a lot of cool tips out of this one, and learn how to think and elevate and automate so that they can actually do more value-added stuff. So I think that is really, really helpful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Pleasure being here.